In this video, we're going to talk about why so many men don't ask for help and what we can do instead. My name is Christopher, and I'm a therapist who works specifically with men. And I want to start off this video with a little bit of a quotation. The quote here is by Terrence Real, who is a family systems therapist, and he has said, "We've taught men to be tough but not tender, to provide but not feel, and then we wonder why they're breaking." And I think that quote really just kind of hits our collective society today. There's something going on within the realm of the masculine that is calling out for help, that is suffering. And just to show that, I also provided a couple of statistics here as well, which is suicide rates are 3 to 4 times higher in men than women. And men often hide emotional pain under anger, withdrawal, or silence. And so I think that these statistics are important to open up. I don't think that we necessarily need to compare men and women directly, but I think it does provide a statistic that helps us to at least see that there's something that's going on, that men are suffering, that men are entering into a period right now where there is a lack of direction, lack of clarity for the role of man in society and in themselves. And so I think due to sort of this lack of direction, there's a lot of suffering that's occurring right now. And I want to talk about sort of how maybe this has developed over time, because this comes from a conditioning. A couple of reasons why we as men may not reach out actually stems from the conditioning that we've had from early childhood, through society, through our school systems, through interacting with other playmates. But essentially, one main sort of stereotype that men carry is that we're supposed to be like a rock for everyone else. And if we think about the family system, of course, I don't want to exclude women. Women also carry some of this as well, but we're speaking specifically to men, which is that, in the family system, there may have been emotional turmoil growing up as a child, and maybe you were looked to as somebody to sort of calm things down, or maybe provide a joke at the right moment to lighten the humor, to sort of crack the chaos that was going around. Maybe you were a surrogate spouse, meaning you were there to help take care of your mother, and you were there for her emotional burden and her to soothe her emotions. Whereas the truth in parenting should be the reverse, which is that a mother should care for their child and help their child cope and work through their emotions. And so there we have what we call an enmeshment wound. And essentially what an enmeshment wound is the flipping of roles in some way. A child becoming a parent for the parent, and a parent becoming a child for the child. And this happens in every family unit, and it's a very sticky and subtle wounding process that occurs. And through this conditioning process, it also occurs within the side with the father as well. If we were fortunate to have a father, many of us had fathers who showed maybe what is considered like stoic principles, which to me is not true stoicism, but they lack vulnerability. And what I mean by this is that many of us may have fathers who just sort of took things, life circumstances to the face without emotionally processing. I've worked with many men who said that they've only seen their father cry maybe once or twice, or never at all. And I think that that's extremely wild, and I really think that that's sort of at the root of why we as men are suffering today, is we've been conditioned not to feel our emotions. And it's sort of been placed onto women that women are the emotional creatures. And I think that that is a complete lie. I think that is false. I think that men are extremely sensitive, extremely intuitive, and also extremely emotional. And if you look at a child, a young boy, before they've been conditioned by society or the family system or trauma or whatever, that child is exuberant, full of spontaneity, full of emotions, has the ability to cry, to laugh, to scream, to play. And at some point, all of these slowly got conditioned out of them. And ultimately, what happens is those emotions, those experiences don't go away. And one of my mentors, Dr. Robert Baer, says the river of grief and the river of joy flow in the same river. And essentially what that means to me is that once we've cut ourselves off from all these emotions that have been seen as weakness, for instance, like sadness or the pain, crying, then we've also cut ourselves off to joy, laughter, and playfulness, and spontaneity. Because once you've cut yourself off from your heart, you've cut yourself off from all of these emotions. And so when we speak about emotions, there is no good or bad emotion. There just is. And one of the emotions that we as men have been, quote unquote, like allowed to feel in our society is anger, because anger doesn't carry that same tinge of like weakness, even though it's rooted in insecurity. One of my close friends from my grad program would say that anger is fear in a leather jacket, and I tend to agree. But as a culture, as men, we haven't been taught how to feel or to process deep emotional experiences. We haven't been taught how to connect with our grief. And part of the reason for this is that we've become severed from our rites of passage, from initiation, from ritual. We don't have, as boys, much connection to our father, to our uncles, to our grandparents. We may see them from time to time. They may be around, but maybe they're not emotionally available. And maybe they didn't take us out at some time when we were 15 or 16 or on the verge of becoming an adult and have us go through an initiation or a ritual or rite of passage that taught us how to be men, that taught us how to be in the world, how to feel as a man, to grieve deeply. And I know from my work in therapy groups and working with other men that there's nothing more beautiful and supportive than being around other men who are doing the work. By doing the work, I mean tapping into and feeling deep levels of grief and emotions and speaking about things that beforehand were too painful to speak about, to tap into true vulnerability, to be able to cry with each other and laugh with each other and be real, and to get out of the surface level conversations. Another reason that sort of we've been conditioned not to feel what's going on inside of us is that our culture has placed shame on this idea of asking for help. That if we ask for help in some way, we're not self-sufficient, or we're not good enough, that asking for help is weakness in some form. And ultimately, once again, that's not true. It takes deep courage and strength to ask for help. I know for myself, when I was suffering deeply with depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and substance use, it was only through me asking for help from another person that I was able to come through that process. And it was more difficult for me not to ask for help at that point. It made things a lot worse for me when I was trying to do everything on my own. And I've kind of given up that idea that I can do everything by myself. And it comes in from time to time, but I let it go. And I remember that I need support. I need emotional support from especially other men to help me, to provide me a sense of strength and confidence, and to help me tap into my emotions. There's sometimes I can tap into my emotions when I'm by myself, but it's so much easier when I'm in a room of other men and somebody says something and it just hits that spot in my heart, and instantly I know, yep, that's exactly how I feel, and boom, it cracks me open. Many of us have been conditioned also to not trust our emotions, to not feel what's going on inside of us. Many of us have been conditioned, as Gabor Mate says, to not feel what's happening inside of us. We've been taught through our caretakers at some point, we have these two conflicting emotional desire systems. We have the need to be accepted and approved, which is built on top of a survival mechanism, because our ancestors, if they weren't accepted or approved, and even children today, then there's potential for death, being cast out. And so built into us, hardwired into us, is the need for approval, the need for validation, and especially through our caretakers who are providing for us, providing food and shelter, etc. And so essentially what Gabor Mate says is that our need for acceptance is greater than our need for authenticity, that we learn to cut ourselves off from who we are, that there's a splitting process from who we are at a very early age, talking ages like 0 to 5, where we learn to start disassociating from our emotional experience to be approved and accepted by those around us. And when we do that really well for a long time, we become completely disconnected from our emotions, and we live in our head. And that doesn't mean these emotions go away. They will enact themselves. They will try to get your attention. If we don't start feeling our emotions, many of us will end up in difficult situations, Could be, deep depression, addiction, suicidal ideation, anxiety. It could be some lighter things too, of just not being able to connect with people in relationships, not feeling a sense of peace or wholeness, not being able to sit in silence, not, playing music or singing or enjoying the day-to-day life, being able to cope. And so essentially, what this process is the process of going back and learning and remembering how to feel what's going on inside of us. Another reason that we've had this is this process of being unable to feel what's going on inside of us is that we've had either absent or emotionally absent fathers. There are two types of abandonment. We have physical abandonment where the father actually leaves the home, which happened to many of us. And we also have a father who's in the home but emotionally abandoned, meaning isn't able to connect with us. Maybe he was around, and this isn't to blame or shame anybody. We're not here to say, dad didn't try his best and had his own conditioning. It's not like he wasn't maybe trying to help provide for the family, but it still affected us. And it's important that we go back and understand truly what happened to us inside us, so that we can understand who we are. Robert Bly talks about in our culture today, we have like a father hunger that, before the Industrial Revolution, we lived in an agrarian and agricultural society, and we were with our fathers all the time. We were in the fields with them. We were learning their craft. We were around them. And after the Industrial Revolution, the father started leaving the home and going to work. And no longer does the boy then have that connection to the father. And our nerve systems are built to be around our fathers, to learn to absorb the masculine essence in a healthy way, what it means to be a man, to love, to grieve, to process, to find resiliency. And when we don't have that, we try and seek it in unhealthy ways. Maybe we seek it through the feminine, through our mother. Maybe we seek it through our schoolmates, who have no idea what they're doing either, people in our same generation. And so a huge element of what's going on here as well is the absent father crisis that we're currently experiencing. We spoke about this too, lack of initiation. Currently, we don't have in our culture proper initiation, boy to man ceremonies. We do have in some cultures, the Jewish culture celebrates the bar mitzvah, and no critique, and yet perhaps there's something deeper missing from our culture, something deeper in terms of true initiation, maybe going out into the woods, true separation, being around older men, playing, laughing, telling stories, learning what it means, but going through some sort of rite of passage to signify the transformation from boy to man. Women naturally have this in some capacity through, beginning a menstruation cycle, through the changing of their bodies. They can start to begin to understand emotionally and intellectually, embodying what it means to be an adult woman. Whereas we as men, we need to go through some sort of initiation process in order to have that, because we don't have that same clicking moment. And so it's extremely important that we have a line drawn in the sand of we're no longer in the realm of the boy or the mother, that we can now enter into the realm of the man. And so today we do have many boys who are running around pretending to be men. And I think that that's where a lot of the pain really lies, is a lot of men who are trapped inside of a boyish mind are seeking help with this initiation process because it's needed, and unconsciously it will be sought. Another reason that we sort of carry this, ability why we may not ask for help is that, our culture has sort of conditioned us as men to only receive value based on performance. From an early age, many of us maybe learned that we receive love through achievement, through getting an A, through doing well at school or sports or whatever it was that we were achieved for, that we only received approval and love when we did something. So we learned to become human doings and not human beings. Basically, the cultural narrative is be successful, make money, win, dominate, and that will lead to happiness. And it's just not the case. And this is not an argument to not pursue things that have meaning and, to demonize the pursuit of financial security. This is just to say that if that is the sole pursuit, if that is the sole thing that is worshipped or sought after, then one's life will be in turmoil. And that's sort of what our culture propagates as happiness, that success monetarily, financially equals happiness. And any time that we begin to struggle, that means that we have a failure of some kind, that something's going on. And so instead of showing our success to the world, we hide it. We don't want others to know that we're suffering deep inside. So we don't show them, because that doesn't fall into our cultural conditioning of being successful, being happy, etc. There's also a cultural narrative that real men are lone wolves, which is kind of interesting because wolves are pack animals. Wolves don't live alone. They are part of a pack, and so we need to as well. We're a social creature. We can't live on our own, and isolation doesn't serve us. It's important to find solitude, of course, but it really is important that we seek help, that we ask others for guidance when we're stuck. It's important that we lean on others, and other people want to help. That's the thing I've learned about opening up, is that other people actually want to help. Another huge element of this too is the fact that we just, as a society, and we just don't really have spaces where men can talk. Being in different cultures and different spaces with different men, there are just places where I just can't, open up and express myself emotionally. It doesn't feel safe to do so. Maybe it's okay to talk about sports or, different things going on, but it doesn't have that same level of deep, meaningful connection. And there's some friends that I've cultivated in my life where I can have this access. And as a culture, it's something that we've kind of moved away from. We've kind of been taught to live on the surface level, not to go deep into our emotions, and actually feel what's going on inside. And so the cultivation of safe spaces is something that's extremely important for helping the collective masculine just to heal from the shame and the trauma and the hiding of what's going on inside of us. So what begins to happen when we start opening up is the nervous system begins to regulate. We reconnect with ourselves. We feel more at ease. We get to drop in. Our creativity gets to return. We also get to build real connection with others. And once we actually open up and be vulnerable with others, they get to see us for who we are. And of course, there's the fear of rejection there. But learning how to hold ourselves in our vulnerability, that even if we're rejected, it's okay. And that's true strength. That's where true power lies, is in the ability to genuinely not be affected by others' opinions of you, because they don't know you. I know for myself, I'm still learning myself. I don't even know who I am, let alone they judging me. They have no idea who I am. So it doesn't make any sense to worry or fret about what other people think about me. And of course it affects me, and it's something that I'm learning to work through. However, I can learn to self-regulate and give myself compassionate self-talk, where I can learn that it doesn't need to affect me in that way. And then, of course, if you begin to feel your emotions, your relationships start to improve. And people, children, friends, animals, they start to feel safer with you, being able to come up to you a little bit more. There's a protective wall that you're keeping people away from anymore. So a couple of tools that you can do to start working through this is, honestly, one of the best things you can do is just call a friend and just speak with them and just kind of let them know what's going on. Building a support system around you. Another thing you can do is using a mantra or phrase. I don't have to fix this right now. I just need to feel it. And giving our own internal feminine the opportunity to breathe so that we can feel what's actually going on inside. And then, of course, I'm biased, but one of the most incredible things you can do is work with a therapist who understands how to access emotions. And if you are looking for a therapist right now, I'm currently taking on clients. If you'd like to work together one-on-one, you can actually click the link in the description down below and schedule just a free consultation, no pressure, just to talk about what's going on and see if we're a good fit. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.